Take a seat.
So let's look at what women want. This is a research, by the way. If you listen to the list, the list of the women, when I said, what do women want? Trust, honesty, sincerity, support. I mean, this was a classic example of that first one, that they really do want a good character. Why is that it didn't, it showed up some on the men's list, but more for women. Here's why. For a man to pass on his genes, for a man to have heirs and pass on his genetic structure, to have children, all he had to do, as I said, is to look at a woman, and he could pretty much tell at first glance if she's a fertile woman, because you can see it in the physical appearance, generally speaking. But for a woman, she needs to know not just can he make a baby, but is he the kind of guy that can be depended upon to support me and the baby, especially during those formative years when she has to be caring and nursing the baby. So a woman, every female mammal, including human beings, the female is slower to commit in the beginning and slower to arouse sexually. See, because women bear the brunt of pregnancy, it's not smart for her to be indiscriminate and impulsive about sexual behavior, because she's the one that's going to carry the child. So all female mammals are slower to arouse, slower to engage, and it's there for a reason. So women, one of the reasons when they don't make a commitment and they want to get to know a guy, they want to get to know, can you trust him? So she's going to be a little slower to warm up. That's why persistence really pays off with the women. Persistence often don't. In fact, let me tell you a good story. My daughter and son-in-law met in college, and she had been involved with someone for like a year or so, and this was her senior year, and she didn't want to get serious. She was not ready to get serious, and her name is Kathleen, and his name is Devin, and they met in a speech class, and there was this attraction, and they went out a few times, but she knew she was going to be graduating and out looking for a job, and she just wasn't ready to settle down. It was like the right guy, wrong time, okay? And Devin fell head over heels in love. And for him, it was both. He found the right person, and it was the right time. He was ready to be serious, ready to be in a serious relationship. Timing was off for her. Timing was on for him. They broke up. She moved to Dallas. He moved to Houston, and that's like a 6-hour drive, 6 or 7 hours between the two cities. But every holiday, even if my daughter had a boyfriend, Devin would come to our house, and he would come to a party. In fact, the adults would sort of secretly take a bet on who was going to stay longer, the boyfriend or Devin, Because good for him. He just kept, because, we loved him, and he was a member of the family, and we knew him, and we always would have big parties around the holidays, and he would just come, and honey, he'd just set himself down there, and she might be there with the boyfriend, but he would just talk to everybody else. And so this went on for a while, and finally I was teaching in Houston, and I asked my daughter, because I always liked him, and I always thought he was a good match for her. So I asked my daughter, I said, when I go to Houston, would it be okay with you if we invited Devin out to dinner, because he was living in Houston, and it just seemed like it would be a shame to go to Houston and not invite him, to see him, because I just really cared for him, even though they weren't going together anymore. And she said, oh, no, that's fine. And I figured that's what she would say. So we go to dinner, and there are 3 adults and Devin. And he had asked this very good question at dinner. He said, all 3 of you are very accomplished, and you've done well in life. What advice would you give a young man like me, from your experience? So we spent the whole dinner talking about career and this and that. And then I went to the bathroom, which is where I do my best thinking. And I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and I said to Devin this one line. I said, you know, Devin, I have one more piece of advice. And I never mentioned my daughter's name. Her name never came up over dinner. But I said, I have one more piece of advice. If you really want something in life, don't take no for an answer. That's all I said. And we parted, and I didn't hear any more from him. But he went back to Houston, and he did a really smart thing. Instead of calling my daughter, because he didn't want to risk being rejected, he called her best friend. He called her friend and started giving her friend information, knowing what? That the friend would tell her. Exactly. And the rest is history, and now they're married, and they've been married 10 years, and they have a child. Anyway, it's a good story. But the point of the story is not only that I love my son-in-law, but the point is, if you want something in life, guys, don't take no for an answer. And I say that to women also. But remember, women of all mammals are slow. And they want to know, will you get in there and fight? Will you fight for this relationship? Will you be faithful? Will you be trustworthy? When the tough times are going, are you going to be dependent upon? And I have people come to me, because most of my therapy work is working with marriages that are really, really seriously in trouble. And sometimes, like the week before I came here, I had 2 men come, and their wives wouldn't come. And I said, do you want your marriage? And he said, yes. And I said, do you want to fight for your marriage? And he said, yes. And I said, then here's what you do. You go home and you tell her, I am going to fight for this marriage. No one is going to love you like I am. I will follow you to the ends of the earth. I will be there. I am going to do whatever it takes to follow you, and I am going to show you how nobody is as good for you as you are for me, as I am for you. And because relationships are very, very delicate nowadays. Nobody, and I don't know about in Singapore, but I'm just going to speak for the United States. People don't respect marriage. I'll tell you another story. I was on an airplane, and we got stuck on the plane. And for 4 hours, we were on the plane, couldn't get off, and we were on the tarmac waiting to deplane. And everybody got to talking and joking, and there was this very attractive man, and there was chemistry between me and him. I could tell it was a DNA match, And I'm married, and he's married. And I could tell, I know what it's like. I know what it feels like, And so we talk, and we have this fun conversation, and the people around are talking. And then we finally get off the plane, and we go down to baggage claim. And he said to me, let's have lunch. And I said, no. And he said, well, why? Why can't we're both in the same profession? And, this would just be a friendly lunch. And I said, you and I both know you're not just talking about lunch. And he said, are you married? And I said, yes, I'm married. He said, and here's the line, the point of the story. He said, are you happily married? Isn't that interesting? People don't respect marriage. Now, that may not be here. It may not be like that in Singapore. Maybe people respect marriage, and they don't flirt with married people, and they don't, cross that line, But I'm telling you, if you want to be in a relationship, you have to have courage. You have to challenge. And especially guys, a woman wants to know, are you going to be trustworthy? Are you, can you hang in there during the hard times? Yes, she wants a good provider. Yes, she wants a good personality, a good parent, and a good partner. I mean, these things go without saying. So, given what we want, what are the challenges for men in a relationship? Well, monogamy, this is research. This isn't just a list that I came up with. And we know that statistically speaking, men have more testosterone than women, although there's some indication that this is changing. I mean, that more and more women, as they are in competitive jobs and in competition, they are becoming more aggressive, and what it goes with aggression is testosterone. In fact, in the clinical population, just as many women are coming in saying, I want sex and he doesn't, as there are men coming in saying, I want sex and she doesn't. So times they're changing around sexuality as women become more free and they can talk about what they want sexually, and they want to be pleased and pleasured sexually just like men do. But monogamy, let me just say something about monogamy. Yes, monogamy, we are all, males and females, we are all able and inclined to be non-monogamous. Monogamy is not necessarily natural. We're all able to be sexually attracted, to fall in love, to love more than one person, even one person at a time. You know, you can love more than one child, more than one friend, also more than one partner. And remember what I said about sexual desire? It's not partner specific. So monogamy has never been about your inclinations. It's about your intentions, your character, your choices, your intent, your commitment. It has to be a choice you make. You don't choose to be monogamous just because you don't feel like having sex with anybody else. Because if you meet enough people, you're going to meet someone with whom you have chemistry. And when you have chemistry with somebody, dopamine raises your sexual desire. In fact, here is one of the most confusing parts about falling in love. Remember I said at birth you were dealt a hand of hormones? Every human being has a sexual set point. And you probably know, if you look at your lifestyle, you probably have a hunch whether you're normally and naturally a low desire person, a moderately high desire person, or a high desire person. You know, a high desire person thinks about sex a lot. They dream about sex. They fantasize about sex. They get frustrated when they don't have sexual contact. You know, they just walk around with sexual ideas in their head. You know, that's the high desire person. And the moderate desire person, they sort of go through phases when they feel the same way, but they don't feel that way all the time. The low desire person doesn't dream about sex. They don't think about sex much. They don't fantasize about sex, and they don't talk about it much. And there are men in all three categories, and there are women in all three categories. But here's what's confusing. Under the influence of infatuation, when you fall in love, a low desire person looks, acts, and feels like a high desire person. Because nature wants you to meet, mate, procreate, and raise healthy offspring. And during the infatuation, falling in love period of time, we all have a lot of sexual energy. Chemistry translates into sexual energy. But the problem is, chemistry doesn't always translate into compatibility.
Take a seat.